In this short documentary, we will take a look at art, one section of art. Aircraft as they were seen and perceived through the eyes of people who were there, who could look, and the image could be transferred from their eye through their hands to a piece of paper. A marvellous gift. Many of these images are so well created that you would think they were photographs. They amaze me. Most of these pictures would have been conceived under great pressure, at times when the mind would be in slight turmoil, but they do say it goes sharper and remembers better under those circumstances. We start off with images from the Battle of Britain, and we'll work our way through the different phases of the Second World War, and we'll follow it in art, oil colours, watercolours or sketches as it unfolds through till when it finishes in the Pacific Ocean area and the heartland of Central Europe in 1945. Throughout that summer of 1940, the battle raged high above the counties of southern England, above the white cliffs of Dover, immortalised in Vera Lynn's song, "There will be bluebirds over the white cliffs of Dover." Tomorrow, just you wait and see. Her song has now, like Lily Mullane, become an icon of those times. Another song springs to mind from the Great War. They used to sing, "It's a long way to Tipperary, to the sweetest girl I know." It must have helped the mind cope with the pressures that they must have been under then. A touch of light-heartedness. Throughout that winter of 1940-41, the bombing raids reached all parts of the islands of Britain. Few areas were spared. The struggles also took place high above the seas, as aircraft ranged further and further out, over the North Sea, the Arctic Sea, the Atlantic Ocean and the Mediterranean. Many of these journeys were miles and miles away from the nearest land, and without the eye of the artist, the war artist, we would never really be able to envisage these pictures. Just like this one, a superb painting of aircraft over the Mediterranean. Another not so well known part of the Second World War was the operations of SOE throughout Europe, with its specialised aircraft to carry people in and out, and the larger ones to carry large consignment of arms to different places. Again, superbly caught. Ill Met by Moonlight, I think was a book, springs to mind when you look at this Lysander. And then we move on to that great conflagration, the battle in the Soviet Union. There are some pictures which are truly stunning, and I will let you just watch and see and understand just what a wrenching period this must have been. Terrifying in all respects, but again the war artists have managed to catch it. Otherwise we would not have been able to enjoy these colour images like this one, almost a photograph. Superb. The artist here has caught this one to perfection, just as the wheels leave the floor and the snow flurries behind them, and here the cracks in the ice and the water as the tanks move east. The detail in this one is absolutely superb. Just look at the trees, the landscape. Would it have been taken from a quick drawing done at the time, or would it be from the artist's mind as he imagined it? We'll never know, I don't suppose. We move on now to what was called the Desert War, the war in North Africa, fought over land, from the pyramids to the Atlantic, or Egypt to Algeria, whichever way you look at it. This stunning artist's view I've had to show you in two parts, due to this being in the format of 16.9 and the photograph of the painting was square. It was necessary to chop it up like this, but it was worth it just to show it. Now we move on to that other great campaign. The air war, fought over Central Europe, by day and by night, when up to 1,000 four-engined aeroplanes at a time clawed their way through the European skies, escorted at night by night fighters, by day by long-range escort fighters. Machines that could stay with the bombers, like this, the Mustang, which so dramatically changed the balance of power in the air war in those skies above Europe. The artist here has caught this one, returning home, to perfection. And in this one, the drama of just how dangerous the skies were over Europe at that time. Your life expectancy wasn't very great. I don't know the figures, as night fighters were prowling everywhere, and during the day fighters. And during daylight, without their little friends, the bombers probably would have suffered badly. But with their little friends, many of them did return, and lived, as they say, to fight again another day. At night, the bomber formations flew a lot lower than the formations during daylight. The daylight raiders would be flying at altitudes of 30,000 feet or more, and that is where we get these vast numbers of vapour trails in the sky. I remember people used to talk about them when I was a youngster, a bit before my memory time. As the dawn breaks and the sun rises, the night formations are returning, some with problems, some without, but glad to see another day, no doubt. A very detailed picture of a hit-and-run raider became popular in the latter part of the war, and required two different types of fighter to catch them, one at high altitude, one at lower altitude. And as technology moved on, the flying bomb, the Dougal bug, as most people called it, as we see here, the flip-over technique by a Tempest, but many pilots said this was very rare. This aggressive-looking painting takes us to the Pacific War, fought over huge distances, most of it out over the sea of the Pacific Ocean. Here's one of my favourite pictures. Super detailed, beautiful setting. Very dramatic, this one, maybe a little over dramatic, as the Corsair comes up vertically, guns firing. Very dramatic. Again the same, but very nicely done. This one you could imagine being taken from a drawing, where someone watched it land, took a drawing, and then painted it. There you would swear that was a photograph. And this one, very realistic, very nice, very impressive painting. The same can be said for this one. And as we run through, we see some of them on the land, but most are carrier based. In this theatre, the carrier was king. Who had the most, the best and the biggest, controlled the seas. The war in the Burma jungles, the forgotten war, claim wearers of the Burma star. With this dramatic picture, we leave the Pacific Theatre and head back to Europe, to the beaches of Normandy, D-Day, when the Allied armies landed and made their way slowly through the Normandy countryside, the boat cage, and the French villages. With massive, overwhelming air power, they made their way slowly to bring the war to a close. But during the winter of 1945, they did experience some very cold weather. The mood nicely caught their super picture, a very atmospheric picture of the Battle of the Bulge. And this one, another super picture, super detail. You don't get any better really, do you? It has been a very interesting look at the work of these war artists. I hope you have found it the same. Thank you for looking. Goodbye.